love of science in everyone, in museums, classrooms, and online, offering engineering design challenges, digital experiences, live presentations, and more. MOS.org.
It's here and now. In Los Angeles, the toll of wildfires continues to grow. At least 24 people have died as multiple fires have destroyed homes, businesses, and beloved community spaces. Spaces like the Palisades branch of the Los Angeles Public Library. It burned in the Palisades fire last week. Joyce Cooper is director of branch library services at the LA Public Library, and she was born and raised in Los Angeles. Joyce, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you. The video was awful to watch of the Palisades branch going up in flames last week. Given how many wildfires California has regularly, were you prepared for something like this?
Honestly, I don't think so. I think because we are in the city of Los Angeles, in our mind, wildfires were probably a very remote possibility, but I don't think we were ready for the destruction that happened and the fact that we actually lost one of our branches. I think we were all in shock when it happened. I will tell you that Wednesday, I spent the better part of the day crying because I just couldn't believe it had happened. And every time I watched that video, it was so heartbreaking to see, that beautiful library reduced to just rubble. It was a really difficult day.
Yeah, I've seen some photos, of the interior, as you say, just beautiful public space. I understand it now may still be too dangerous for you and others to visit the Palisades branch site. How should we think about what's lost?
That community, that library in particular, had a very vibrant friends group.
ask Pastor Bruce Gardner from the Holland Church of the Nazarene to come forward and give us an invocation. And Pastor, if you don't mind telling us a little about yourself and your church, we'd appreciate that. Then after he's done, I'll ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here before you. I want to thank you for taking on the job of overseeing the county business, and the jobs that are before you are big jobs, and I thank you for taking on that particular job for this county and the people of it. Holland's Church of the Nazarene has been a part of this community for nearly 70 years. And as I come in as a new pastor, I just came here in August, we seek to be a church that looks to help this county utilize faith-based community to be an asset as well as a benefit to the community here in Roanoke County. And so with that being said, we offer our services in any way that we can be of help to the Board of Supervisors in that capacity. We have a small church, but we are a church that loves being here in the county. I can tell you that we have a beautiful vista looking out my parsonage window of the mountains, and we have thoroughly enjoyed being a part of this community the time that we've been here, and we look forward to the future that we have here. With that being said, let's pray and ask the Lord for guidance. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the beautiful sunshine of the day that you've given us. Lord, I pray for these folks here on this Board of Supervisors and all those that work with them, that as we embark on this year of 2025, that you would provide wisdom, that you would provide guidance, that you would provide discernment as they discuss and handle the issues that come before the folks of Roanoke County. So I ask your specific blessing on them, Lord, as they do this job. May they have the endurance and the strength to be able to seek your will and your way for the way that things need to go and be run and decided here in Roanoke County. We thank you for your gift of provision and guidance and direction, and we ask these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The board now is returning to open session. The Board of Supervisors held its annual organizational meeting earlier today at 1 p.m. in the board meeting prior to the regularly scheduled board meeting. All board members are present. Regular meetings are held on the second and fourth Tuesday at 2 p.m. Public hearings are held at 6 p.m. on the fourth Tuesday of each month. Deviations from the schedule will be announced. The meetings are broadcast live on RVTV Channel 3 and will be rebroadcast on Friday at 7 p.m. and on Sunday from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. Board of Supervisors meetings can also be viewed online through Roanoke County's website at www.roanokecountyva.gov. Individuals who require assistance or special arrangements to participate in or attend the Board of Supervisors meetings should contact the clerk to the board at 540-772-2005 at least 48 hours in advance. A gentle reminder to please turn off all cell phones or place them in silence. Thank you. So earlier this afternoon at 1 p.m., the board held its annual organizational meeting. The board is now returning to that open session, and all members are present. We move to item D on the agenda, request to postpone, add to, or change the order of agenda items. Are there any requests to postpone, add, or change the order of the agenda, my fellow board members? Come here. Mr. Kaywood.
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lubick.
No changes, sir.
Thank you. We move to item E, briefings. First briefing to discuss with the Board of Supervisors the 2025 real estate assessment. Ken Fay, our Director of Real Estate Evaluation. Welcome, Mr. Fay.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and thank you for the opportunity for me to share with you the 2025 general reassessment. Real estate values continue to increase despite increased mortgage rates. The low inventory of available homes have kept sales in high demand. A little bit of background. We assess all properties every year with an effective date of January 1. After the briefing today, a reassessment notice will be mailed tomorrow, January 15th, to all county property owners. The Code of Virginia requires all real estate to be assessed at 100% of fair market value, and our appraisal staff is responsible for identifying, locating, estimating the value of all properties within the county for tax purposes. It's the citizens who buy and sell real estate in the open market that establishes values by how much they are willing to offer and accept for individual properties. Our staff evaluates these transactions and value properties equitably with similar surrounding properties. Differences exist between individual properties and neighborhoods across the county. Real estate values have continued to increase significantly at the local, regional, and most national markets, mainly due to limited supply. The changes for 2025 assessment are broken down by category here in this slide, including residential, commercial, market, and new construction. The overall percentage increase for 2025 is 7.47%. The residential portion is 8.07%. It's a countywide average. There are several neighborhoods throughout the county that experience even higher increases than this. The bottom portion of the slide shows what changes are attributed to market differences as well as new construction. Market value residential represent the largest portion of change at 89.24% of the difference in value from 2024 to 2025. In this slide here, we show assessment accuracy. The standards are set by the International Association of Assessing Officers. We look at many measures. These are probably the three that relied upon the most. We had the sales ratio. Standard is 91 to 105. This year we're at 92.1, which is about a point over what we were last year at 91. The coefficient of dispersion, 5 to 15, we fell in at 6.21, and the price related differential at 0.999. Here we show assessment growth history in the last 10 years. After the real estate market bottomed out in 2013, following the global financial crisis of the mid-2000s, we started to see values recover in 2014. The overall assessment was driven by new construction in 2015 through 2017. And in the last 6 years, increases in assessments have driven by sales in a strong real estate market as new construction has remained steady. Here we look at the assessment growth versus inflation. Growth below the inflation during the housing downturn, in line with inflation, with inflation, with a steady increase from 2016 to 2018. Inflation dropped off last year as the Fed increased interest rates, and values increased this year at a lower rate than last year. The increase was influenced again by limited inventory. The lower rate of increase is largely a result of lower home affordability. The median sales price history, single-family residential, and the median price is that number in the middle where the same amount of sales were above that number as below, came in this year at $337,500. Residential sales by price range. This keeps moving to the right, of course, as values continue to increase. And it just shows a breakdown in $200,000 increments. Here we had the history of residential sales. This is the number of sales. You see a drop off in 2021, and as far as the number of sales, and a lot of that has to do with the affordability issue. 958 sales last year. We had 952 this year as of November 20th, so we'll probably see, or we will see more, we have seen more sales in 2024 than we did last year, by a minimum amount, not real significant. And probably won't see anything significant unless there are certain factors change in the marketplace, and that's most of it is home affordability and an increase in supply of homes. The green line there shows the number of foreclosures. Down in 21, 22, there's forbearance programs during the COVID pandemic. That was lifted in late 2022. 2023, you see a little bit of a spike at 25. Most of those were just banks and clearing their foreclosures that have stacked during the forbearance program. And then it dropped back down to 9 this year. This shows our assessment history. While we saw growth in both residential and commercial real estate assessments, the majority of total assessment growth is attributable to growth in the residential assessments, and particularly in single-family residential. This pie chart here shows the last 10 years comparison, breakdown as far as commercial, multifamily, and single-family sales. And you can see this is in billions, and the large percentage, 83.83 in 2015 and 85.25, still the largest portion in single-family. This new construction history, even though the majority of the assessment increase was due to growth in residential real estate, Roanoke County continues to see strong growth in new construction. This chart shows the new construction history over the past 10 years. Last year in 2023, there were some larger projects put on in the commercial sector, and that's why you see kind of a spike there. And that happens in commercial properties. They're more complex, and projects are larger, sometimes spanning multiple years, which leads to some fluctuations from year to year. In this slide, we see new construction in 2015 compared to 2024. And it again breaks down single-family, multifamily, and commercial industrial, with single-family having 55% of the new construction value increase. Looking ahead to next year, local and national real estate markets continue to perform strong. There are some areas of the country, particularly Austin, Texas, that saw some increases or decreases, and a lot of those are ones that had real significant increase. Not that ours wasn't and the national wasn't, but there was even larger increases in some of these markets, and they're starting to see a slowdown and even a decrease. But nationwide, there was certainly an increase, and we reflect that here in Roanoke County as well. The Federal Reserve has continued to approve limited rate decreases. Uncertainty about the economy may slow down rate changes. Lower mortgage rates could move locked-in homeowners to sell. Affordability is still a challenge, and market values remain strong so far the beginning of 2025. Here we show our assessment dates. The assessment notices will be mailed out tomorrow. The informal appeals start on the 23rd of January, run through January 23rd, or January 31st, I'm sorry. We include in there a Saturday and a late day till 7 p.m. It gives a chance for everyone to have an opportunity to appeal their values. The formal appeals with the Board of Equalization occur April 24th, July 24th, October 30th. The final deadline to apply for an appeal is September 12th, 2025. Some other dates, important dates, March 11th will be a public hearing for effective tax rate, and on April 8th will be the hearing for tax rate adoption and adoption of the 2025 tax rates. Any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, board members.
So I just have one real quick question, actually a couple, but if you don't mind going back to slide number 7, and it's a real telling story of how expensive housing has become. Affordability was one of the things that you quoted, but also lack of inventory for housing. And this is all market-driven. It's not that the county can really control any of these factors, but other than encourage new housing, and specifically new single-family housing. Is that what you would consider the story being, that we need to really be pushing or promoting, encouraging new single-family housing?
Certainly. I think there's a need for housing in all different types, but specifically in single-family housing, I would agree.
And then I had another question on slide number 13. On slide number 13, it showed that there was, it shows that in 24, I don't see any, and I need to make sure I'm reading this correctly. So the dark blue is multifamily. No, it has .04 multifamily. And I was wondering if that, when the Peters Creek and Cove Road apartments would have been on the chart for that, would that have been 23?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay, that
we
makes
had
sense then.
very little come on this year, and there's some slated to go on for 2025. And like I said, some of these larger complexes, like multifamily parcels, properties, may, the timing of it, so you might see an increase or a spike in
Sure.
multifamilies this next year.
Sure. Thank
or
you.
this
It
year.
was a good presentation. I appreciate it, Ken. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ken. You know, the more times you give this, thank you, Mr. Chair, the more times you give this, the more questions come to mind. And my perception, just to clarify for the record, which is what I'm sure your point was to get across, is we do not have enough multifamily construction going on. And when we see a price, an average price, if I might remember, you were showing me was $329,000 for a home, and then it's risen this year in '24 to $337,000. That what's driving some of that increase, besides inflation, is the demand where you see multiple offers on a house for sale, and I'm sure Ms. Shepherd sees that in her market in real estate. And so until we can get more housing on the market, insulated inflation is occurring because of the higher demand here. Having said all that, I would like to say this. We know it's 7.47% average on assessments here in Roanoke County. I would like to see like counties, when I say like counties, staff knows what I'm talking about, Hanover, Henrico, some of these and other parts of the Commonwealth. I'd like to see, to the extent it's available now from your peers, what their average assessments are and how much is the average price in those areas, how much it has increased, not necessarily the number, but the value. Did it increase 20,000 on the average or what have you? And I'd like that in a chart compared to Roanoke County. And I'm going to tell you why. Because Roanoke County not only has a lot of high demand, it's got some challenging topography, which makes it very difficult and expensive to build on, no matter what you're building on. So some of our sister counties east of us may not have that problem, and I'm looking to see what a comparison is, and I'm going to tell you why. This is just one example of what we can use to refute when the phone calls start coming in tomorrow and the emails tomorrow and the subsequent days, because last year that's what happened. And citizens see this and hear about it, and then their notices are going out tomorrow. Is that right, or today?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And so it's only a matter of time when the U.S. mail decides to deliver on a Saturday here and there, if there's no bad weather, and that's going to infuse these questions. And we want to be ready for it. We want to be a little more proactive. So if you can work with staff to come up with some background information, that would be very much appreciated.
Certainly. I will expand this search, but just to let you know, the Roanoke City has had a 8.23%, Salem 8.29%.
Yeah.
And I'll expand that into counties
Sure.
beyond the
Well,
valley.
that's expected because the city's usually higher than we are, but I'm interested in what Hanover and like populations of the counties east of us or surrounding us, and I think Mr. Kaywood knows what some of those are. I even think Albemarle is one of the noted counties that we oftentimes look at and see what's going on there. And I know it's a different part of the state, and I know the geography is different, but I would just want to see what the closeness is, because recently I saw a document in Austin and other places, you're only seeing growth of 3%. Well, inflation is probably going to be 3%, I'm reading. Depends on which day of the week the Wall Street Journal or Kiplinger Letter's got a number in there. They have one for January, they have one forecast for December. So I would tell you that 3% is probably going to be the number for 25. We are 4.47% above the rate of inflation, and we know why. It's the high demand and the low supply. But I want to see how others are seeing this, because in explaining that high assessment, we need to point out the unique differences in our area compared to some of the other counties. It doesn't make anyone feel better, but at least it defends what we're doing to some of our citizens. The other thing we need to point out to our citizens, and that's probably not your department because the board sets it and then you include that, is the 5 cents on the real estate tax rate that we have reduced over the last 2 years. And to do anything along those lines in the future would cut services out. For example, and I'm digressing and I'll pass this on to the chair in a moment, if you took waste service collections out of the equation, that's 5 to 6 cents on the tax rate. And if we do that, then you're going to have different trash companies running around different neighborhoods 5 days a week, maybe 6. So what we offer for what we're priced at is some services no place else in the state offers today. So we got right nice conditions here in Roanoke County. We just need to get a few more homes built. I don't know what that number is, but I bet you somebody could tell us, if you took the average price at $337 today, how many more homes would we need to bring that average assessment down from 7.47%? That's a great question, and that I'm sure somebody above my pay grade can figure that out.
Yeah, I can say I checked the number of active listings each day. There's 173 active listings for residential homes today in Roanoke County. Typically, on a stable market, it's about 400.
Yeah.
So we're less than half.
Yeah, we need to get to work on some building, and I'm sure our board all agrees on that. Thank you very much. And it was a great presentation. But if I see it anymore, I'm going to have some more questions.
Okay.
Chair recognizes Mr. Mahoney.
Just 2 comments and then 1 question. For my colleagues on the board, Mr. Fay's slide number 8 that shows the median sales price at $337,500. That's a scary number. I can't think of many young couples or young families being able to afford that kind of mortgage, put down 5 or 10% and finance the rest. I forget what the rate is. I read someplace 6.9 or 7% to get a 30-year mortgage. That's hard. And looking at 337,500 as median, that to me is scary. The other concern I would have for my colleagues, on slide 12, this board, going back a decade, its number 1 goal, its number 1 priority has been to expand commercial and industrial. And not that we're picking on business, I don't want that message to go out, but rather our hope was by having more commercial and industrial, it would take some of the pressure off of the residential homeowners. And despite of a decade of this board putting real local dollars into trying to build infrastructure to encourage commercial and industrial, we haven't moved the needle. And I know it's hard to move the needle when you're talking of billions of dollars, but that sort of depressed me when I read that over the weekend. I was hoping we were making a little more progress in terms of expanding our tax base. Finally, my question either to Mr. Fay or to Mr. Lubeck, we done everything with our Board of Equalization? We have a full board, and do we have the judges signed off on the appointments, or is that an action we have to take?
So it's something that we do need to do again for this year.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the Board of Equalization?
Yes, Board of
We have a full board with the exception of an additional alternate.
Okay.
We have one alternate. When you have a 5-member Board of Equalization like we do in our size county, it calls for 2 alternates, so there is one spot for.
So we need to find maybe another alternate on the Board of Equalization. Thank you.
I think it was a great presentation, especially since I've spent I'm on my 38th year in the real estate world. But I was just looking when you started speaking about active properties. Right now, as of a few minutes ago, there are actually 161 in Roanoke County, with which multiple ones have gone pending today, and then 114 pending. And you're exactly right. Typically, you have 300 to 400 houses on the market at any given time. And just giving people an idea, if you take the $330,000 average price at 7%, if you have someone that's lucky enough to be able to put 5% down, their payment, not including taxes and insurance, is going to be right around $2,085. And that is almost impossible for a single person to be able to afford. I mean, you've got to have a couple, and even then, that is a steep payment. So it's definitely the lack of inventory that is continuing to drive the houses up. I have a house that I actually listed today and have gotten calls with multiple offers coming in on it, which means they're going to be going above asking price. So the lack of inventory is the huge problem with all of this. But you did a great presentation, and your numbers are 100% accurate as far as I can see.
Thank you.
Mr. North?
Just one final comment. Someone who bought a home 3-4 years ago at interest rates of 3.25% at about $289,000 in the Benton Magisterial District has got an assessment now probably somewhere around 337, let's say, about $45,000, $46,000 increase. They can't afford to move to buy a larger home, as an example, because who wants to give up a 3.3% interest rate to even begin to think they can qualify for that average home today at 7%? We got a huge problem, and we got to fix it. And I know you can't fix it, but an increased inventory will help put us in that direction. Yes.
Talking about 3 years ago exactly, if you took someone that had bought that same $330,000 house compared at 7% today, if 3 years ago, if you did which my son locked in at a 2.35 rate, the payment, principal and interest goes from $2,085. 3 years ago, it would have been $1,200. So that gives you an idea of the difference.
Thank y'all. Mr. Fay, I got some follow-up questions, and I don't remember what sheet number it was, but it was the one on growth for new construction. If you could go to that. If you could go to that slide. Not the history. It's the one for growth. Keep going back. Keep going back. Keep going back. You're not there yet.
Yeah, up there you go.
You're going forward.
Okay, you're talking, you're saying new construction?
Yeah, there it is. Woo.
Oh, okay.
No, go back one more. There we go. Assessment growth, the green line, new construction.
Yes.
So you've got, it looks like, the way I'm reading the linear line, you've got 2025 dipping below 2024. How did you arrive at that?
It's just all the new construction that we add on from January 1 to December 31st. Well, actually, for this presentation, November 20th, 24 is the cutoff. And based on that number is 0.6, 0.60%. Previous years, it's about 1% is typical over the years, and it just was a slight dip. I mean, there was a lot of new construction in residential real estate. We didn't put as much on this year in commercial, not to say there's new construction not going on in commercial. It's just the timing of those projects. But for residential new construction, it's been a challenge keeping up with all the new permits.
So the green line, new construction, is a combination of commercial and residential?
Yeah, it's all new construction, yes.
Gotcha, okay. So our school projects don't fall into that?
This is all taxable. We don't add no
Okay,
tax.
gotcha, okay, all right. Any further questions on the board?
No.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fay. Next, we're going to move to item E2, a briefing by the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Commission. Jeremy Holmes, Executive Director of the RVARC. Welcome, Mr. Holmes.
Afternoon. I think I should be in here somewhere. I'm not sure where I am. There. Well, while he's loading me up, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon, Chairman Radford, members of the Board of Supervisors. Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about some of the projects and programs that the Regional Commission has completed in partnership with or in support of Roanoke County over the past year, and to look at a little bit of what we've got on deck that's just starting up that we expect to wrap up this fiscal year or this calendar year. I do always like to start with a little bit of refresher, use this opportunity to remind folks exactly what we are as the Regional Planning Commission. We are one of 21 planning districts in the state charged with working with our member localities to address issues of greater than local significance. So anything that crosses jurisdictional borders, challenges or opportunities that you share with your neighbors. We are charged by the Code of Virginia to kind of work in that space. Means about half of our work is transportation, as you might imagine, but as you'll see in the coming presentation, that includes economic development work, environmental work, and work regarding the regional opioid crisis. Our job is to try to help you and your citizens and businesses save money by delivering plans and projects that are very cost-effective, ways to address some of these regional challenges. I think we're a pretty good investment. Most recent calculations show for every dollar we bring in local dues, we leverage that against $11 in state, federal, and other resources that either support our work at the Planning Commission or are returned in direct services, such as our Virginia Housing Grant that's assisted in affordable housing construction and some of the programs you'll see in just a moment. And of course, we don't do this on our own. We rely on our localities to participate, to help drive our priorities and our work. So I always want to appreciate Mr. North and Chairman Radford for your service so far on the commission and the TPO. And Ms. Shepherd, I look forward to working with you on the commission now that you have been appointed. On that note, I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to recognize Mr. North. I believe most folks are probably aware that Mr. North was one of 2 recipients last year from the Virginia Association of Planning District Commissions of the Gordon Dixon Award, who is the very first executive director of a planning district, I believe, in the state. And this award recognizes PDC commissioners and other leaders who embody and promote leadership in the idea of regionalism across the state. And Mr. North in particular was recognized for his work on Smart Scale and CTB. You might remember 2 years ago, we did a lot of work with the CTB to make sure that our region continued to get its fair share of state transportation dollars. Mr. North did a lot of that work. His leadership of the legislative agenda through the commission's regional legislative agenda, and you'll see in a moment some of the work that we've been doing on the Roanoke-Blacksburg Regional Airport, amongst others. So it's great both that Mr. North was recognized, but also that our region was recognized as a leader in regionalism across the state. Not all other communities are as lucky as we are, where we tend to get along and we do approach some of these big challenges working productively with our neighbors. I'll talk about 3 quick projects that just highlight some of our areas of work. I'm going to lead with some of our work in economic development, specifically with the Roanoke-Blacksburg Regional Airport. This project actually kind of crosses both our transportation planning work, as the airport does sit on the TPO. Our EDA work, as the airport is one of the highlights in our partnership planning grant with EDA because of its importance for regional economic development. And it's highlighted on our legislative agenda. And this is really an effort to convene the region around support for and advocacy for the airport, acknowledging its key importance to existing and future economic development, and to make sure it gets the resources it needs to grow along with the region's business needs. This includes, but is not limited to, a lot of the discussions we've had about runway extension, but also includes safety improvements, terminal improvements, air service, more direct flights, that sort of thing. The airport needs a lot of resources, and we're working to convene the public and private sector around advocating for those resources. One of the first steps we took was last fall. We led a leadership trip of representatives from the Commission, the TPO, the Roanoke Regional Chamber, the Airport Commission, and the Blue Ridge Innovation Corridor down to the Research Triangle in Raleigh, where we met with the CEO of the Raleigh-Durham International Airport, business leaders such as First National Bank and Lenovo in North Carolina, the MPOs and PDCs and chambers down there around work that they've been doing for the past 10 to 20 years that have resulted in unprecedented state investment in their airports. North Carolina funds their airports almost 4 times what we do in Virginia. And a lot of that work came out of efforts at the Research Triangle, and specifically efforts from the regional chambers and the airport to do that advocacy. So we were able to meet with all the leaders in this space, had 2.5, 3 hours with them to talk about their programs, some of the projects at the chamber level. It has given us a good head start on work we'll be undertaking here to replicate Raleigh's success. So we're very early in that effort. But this is the right time to start having those conversations, and particularly to encourage and build more private sector support around the airport. I'll talk next about our work with the Opioid Abatement Authority. Through our collective response program, we provide technical support on grant writing and project development under the Abatement Authority. At the request of Roanoke County and Roanoke City last fall, we developed a pre-application process, so program or organizations who would be interested in coming to you to seek funding, because you need to apply for the funding from the Abatement Authority. The organizations who might come to you were first directed to come through this pre-application process, where a group of community leaders, healthcare leaders, and so forth involved in the collective response scored those projects for their alignment with the Blueprint for Action, which is sort of the regional strategic plan, how we address the opioid crisis in the region. And so that is intended to provide your staff technical information, some ability to maybe prioritize the viability of projects as they continue on through the grant application cycle that wraps up in April, or ends in April, through the Abatement Authority. We received 11 applications through that pre-application cycle, and that process actually wraps up tomorrow morning. So our advisory committee will do the final sign-off on those scores, and they'll be sending those projects to your staff in Roanoke City to continue on with which, if any of those, you might choose to move forward through the funding process. And of course, the collective response and that the commission remain here to continue providing convening and technical support as you investigate the viability of those projects. And the last thing I want to point out is just a quick direct service project that we've got through the commission that directly supports Roanoke County. This is our septic pump out program. Doesn't always sound glorious, but is really, really important. We receive funding through the Virginia Environmental Endowment to provide free income qualified septic pump outs to residents of Roanoke County. So these are folks who may not otherwise be able to take care of their systems, can apply through us and have those pump outs 100% covered by this VEE grant. So we manage the contractor, we manage the work with the homeowners, and we work with your staff and your communication staff to promote the program and move applications over to the commission. That supports water quality and resiliency goals and is obviously a great public service for folks who may not otherwise be able to take care of this system. To date, we've completed 75 pump outs. There's a goal of 96 by August. And this program has been so successful that we've been asked to replicate it in Botetourt, and we're now looking at expanding it to Craig County next year. So it's currently active in Botetourt based on the Roanoke County model. And we are going to be applying for another 3-year grant for this program. So I want to highlight those. They're all different areas that highlight kind of where the commission lives, economic development, the service provision, and the opioid authority, but they're all areas that are issues and challenges, again, you share with your neighbors. So with this program in particular, for example, we're glad that we're able to show that this model works and expand it regionally. So it was a great way to show the value of that project. For the remainder of the year, just highlight a couple quick things. We are about to launch a regional truck parking study. This was a work program request that came from Roanoke County last year. It's focused on the urban area, but will include the whole regional commission's footprint. But this is going to look at, I think we're all aware, the challenges with improper and inappropriate truck parking all over the region. So this is going to look at that issue, quantify what the problem is and kind of where it's coming from now, working with the trucking industry, and then identify policies, things that we can do locally, things that we can do with the destination businesses that are kind of causing the parking challenges, as well as what options we have working through the state to create some better policies and investment in truck parking. We were in the middle of the regional hazard mitigation plan. Many of you have probably participated in that, or the staff has participated in that. This is a required FEMA document that is necessary for any funding, post-hazard funding we might need. Hopefully we don't need it, but if we do need it, this document needs to be in place before we can access that funding. You may recall several years ago, there was a tornado in Lynchburg, and they did not have this plan in place, and they were not able to access any FEMA funding to address that. So this is a really important plan to help you, if you need it, help your citizens. So this is in place. It's expected to complete this fall. We've been working on it very hard, and again, have engaged county staff significantly on getting it to where it is. And the last one to highlight real quick is the 5-year update of the Comprehensive Economic Development Plan. We kicked off in November at the Fralin Biomedical Research Institute, had a great presentation from Dr. Friedlander on the innovation economy, for example. This effort is really focused on creating a leaner, more actionable plan with project priorities that are directly tied to funding opportunities. And I want to thank Mr. Mahoney as Vice Chair of the SEDS Committee for helping us really think through how do we use this to create a project prioritization process and focus on those things that will have the biggest impact. That plan will be done in June, and we've got a couple meetings at the airport, at Roanoke Cement. We're going to get a tour of the cement plant, which will be exciting. And in March, we're actually having representatives from the EDA and the USDA come speak to us about how they use the SEDS to help them make funding decisions. So that'll be really critical for helping us make sure this plan is not something that sits on a shelf, but actually results in additional federal investment. So that's all I've got. We do a lot more than that, obviously, but I wanted to highlight some of what's going on. I'm happy to answer any questions you've got, but I also just want to reiterate my appreciation for your participation We can't do this without active engagement from our localities. We are entering our work program process. You'll hear about that more at this month's Regional Commission meeting, but this is our opportunity to start looking at project development for next year. So we will be coming out to you and your staff asking for ideas for fiscal year '26. So that's all I've got, but again, happy to answer questions, and thank you very much.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Mr. North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeremy, something that's on the horizon, in fact, we're getting ready to go to Richmond next week and take the card with us, at least I am, on behalf of the commission, the TPO, is a resolution, or not a resolution, but a card that the airport committee that made the trip to Raleigh is going to share, because the first thing we're going to start doing is advocating for the Commonwealth of Virginia to put more money in general aviation that's spread out over the airports, because we're anemic at best compared to North Carolina. And I will just add to that for the audience, what we heard in Raleigh was an economic development impact tool that they used to sit down with every member of the Senate and the legislature in the House for North Carolina, and they educated every single one of those folks to what a dollar invested in airport infrastructure and improvements means in economic impact, and I think it was like $33 for every dollar invested. And some people had to be tutored twice, but they all know that a dollar given to that airport and all airports in North Carolina that filters down to Raleigh is used and very impactful. So their mindset has been working with the state to build a strong support base, because you can't rely on, the federal government to give you 90%, because the federal government's going to put it on a long list of projects. And when your number comes up, which who knows when that could be, 5, 10 years, then and only then you might get some of the money. And by then, inflation will object to the request that you need it up, like it does sometimes on our highway projects. So this is all based upon one thing and one thing only, and that is the state legislature increasing that first pot of money that needs increasing. But secondly, and you'll see this coming down the road from the chamber and Eric's leadership, we got to have every single business in the Roanoke Regional Chamber singing from the same hymn book, because only then and then only will you get the attention of the legislature in Richmond, as well as our federal leaders, which means our federal representatives as well as our U.S. senators, because some of them may know what North Carolina told us and some may not. But you got to keep beating on that drum, because not only does the runway need repairing in the future, but if we ever expect to extend it, it's going to not only mean every business, but every government around here, especially the Roanoke, Blacksburg, and the Roanoke County governments support that. And it's in our legislative agenda today. That is in the commission's agenda, which we're only one of 2 or 3 planning districts around the Commonwealth that have that tool. And we share it with our legislators just like we do in Roanoke County. And you just keep on sharing it and bringing it back up. And one day, we'll have some successes. So thank you for those efforts and that energy, because I know it's added to your time that you have, because Jeremy is 24/7, 365 right now because of all these projects. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Any other comments?
I want to thank Jeremy. As he indicated, I am this board's representative on the SEDS group. Our first meeting is tomorrow afternoon. We have a group of local government reps as well as local industry and business reps, which I think is very valuable to follow up what Mr. North was saying. One of our difficulties is, quite frankly, we have probably, help me, 150 projects that are identified in our list.
I think we're at 146 right now, yeah.
And we've been trying to prioritize those to maybe 8 to 10, with a goal of then being able to talk to our federal partners to see if we could be successful in securing some grant funding to promote projects that would benefit the region. And it's difficult. You can imagine with all the localities involved, we all have different projects and priorities and where we want to go. But we're working on it, we're making progress, and we'll continue that tomorrow. Thank you.
And Jeremy, just to add a little more information to the regional airport and the importance of getting the runway expansion. I'll tell the story about Dr. Freelander, which you mentioned from Fralin Biomedical. And when he first came to Roanoke, he tells us a story. You know, he came from Birmingham, Alabama. He was with UAB down there. And he said once the medical school got tracks going and going in the right direction, the industries got together and they created they expanded the airport. And now they have flights that are tenfold. Now, who would think that Birmingham, Alabama, and I don't know the population compared to Roanoke, but they have flights a go-go now and all kinds of service. And it is it's a great hub. It's something that I agree with Mr. North and you guys going down there seeing Raleigh, but it is a definite need. And I hope we have success, legislative success, as you guys go up there this year. So thank you very much.
One thing Bristol's doing, the Tri-Cities Airport, I read about recently, is they've signed agreements. Well, I don't know what the airport did, the local governing bodies did, because the airport couldn't enter into the agreement, with airlines for nonstop service. And if they're guaranteed X dollars for every month, then that's great, they get the money. But if the flights don't add up to, say, $50,000 in revenue for the airlines, then there's some sharing regionally to maintain that flight to continue to operate until it builds up enough benefit in terms of passengers. Now, that's an innovative approach. It's worked, but that's one of the things we need the airport expansion for, because we can't bring in the big jets for nonstop service to Denver. American's looking good, I think, to a Dallas location, so we heard, but there's agreements under the table that you have to keep, or they're not going to stay in here. For example, we had a flight to Nashville. Plenty of people going, but not plenty of people coming from Nashville that live in the Nashville metropolitan area to Roanoke. So that flight went away after about 6 months trial. So you've got to have the demand and keep the demand strong in order to grow the airport. But our runway needs extension, because in hot weather, you can't have a fully loaded plane taking off with a lot of cargo just because of the weather conditions and the lift on the runway that exists today. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes, for
Thank you
coming
very
here
much.
today. And we are going to fly over to Agenda F, appointments.
I hope so.
Do any board members have an appointment that has not been given to the clerk and included in the board report for agenda item D?
No, I don't.
We're good? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the list of appointments set forth in the board report?
Mr. Chairman, I will move the approval of the list of appointments.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Hooker?
Yes.
Mr. North?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Radford?
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to item G, consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by one resolution in the form or forms listed below. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Does any board member have a wish to remove any item from the consent agenda
sir.
for
None here.
discussion?
No, sir.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt all matters on the consent agenda?
Motion to adopt.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hooker?
Yes.
Mr. North?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Radford?
Yes. Moving on to item H, citizens' comments and communications. This time has been set aside for Roanoke County citizens, county property owners, and county business owners to address the board on matters of interest of concern. While the board desires to hear from all those who desire to speak, this agenda item is limited to a duration of 30 minutes. Each individual speaker shall be afforded 3 minutes to speak. Are there any citizens wanting to address the board that have not submitted a form? Okay. And hearing none, we move to item I, reports. Is there a motion to receive and file reports that have been included with the agenda under item I?
Move the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hooker?
Yes.
Mr. North?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Radford?
I was going to ask the treasurer to discuss with us the OPEB numbers, but I figure he's shaking his head.
Is he here? Hi, Kevin.
I'm sorry, Kevin, I couldn't resist.
Yes, on me.
Thank you.
Okay, we move to item J, reports and inquiries of board members. Mr. Mahoney, you are first
All right.
in line.
I'll leave to Mr. North the discussion of our event this morning. What I would like to say, though, is I want to thank our partners at the Virginia Department of Transportation. Last week, we had an excellent tour of the Highway Department Operations Center, and it was very enlightening. And I think it also reinforced the close working relationship we have with our local VDOT representatives. And I think that's a benefit to all our citizens and our community. So I think we had a great trip there. Secondly, I just want to remind everyone that the Washington Redskins will succeed in Detroit this weekend. Thank you.
Okay.
Nothing further, sir.
With that Redskin update, Commander update,
I refuse to use the C word.
okay. We move on to Tammy Shepherd.
Well, I do not have a whole lot to share except for one thing that I am super excited about. And I was able to get tickets to the inauguration this week. So Sunday, my husband and I are leaving to go to the presidential inauguration, and I am very excited about it. I may be doing a dance to the Village People. And then from there, I will be hitching a ride with my husband to Richmond to meet up with Martha for VACO. So this is going to be a busy week, but I am really excited. This will be the first inauguration I've ever been to. So that's all I've got.
Thank you. Mr. North.
Thank you. Have you checked the weather? It's going to be quite chilly, I think, on the Capitol.
Snow in the
steps.
forecast.
Well, I'm hoping that I'm going to have tickets that are right outside the Capitol in the warm seats, and maybe even be invited to the ball later where I have to buy a new frock to go.
Well, let me give you a backup plan. The National County's office overlooks the Capitol. You can go there and be nice and warm and listen to the inauguration, but have a safe trip. Yes, we want to talk today about smart scale formula scores. They should have been released at 10 a.m. Megan Cronice is probably looking over the results. Just because some of our projects from Roanoke County and the region may or may not get approved. If they don't get approved, we're now in the political time between January and May where it's critical to talk to our Commonwealth Transportation Board Representative Dr. Smoot to gain his support to try and lobby the Commonwealth Transportation Board, as they all are going to do, and there's going to be some projects swapping around in negotiations. So let's keep that in mind. This isn't the last straw. This just sets up the negotiating process. Although there were fewer projects this year for smart scale across the state, and those fewer projects mean maybe you have greater success because there was some new rules and regulations that were mitigated a couple of years ago. This is round 6. However, inflation for highway construction has gone up considerably, as we know from some emails we've received. And so that don't mean that we're going to have a greater opportunity or chance for our projects. The scoring has changed a little bit. The number of applications has not, and that was important, and we'll see what happens. In fact, I'm listening to $64 million cost was added since August to the projects we have submitted for over $336 million. So, you know, you submit them in August and bingo, here go the cost up by December. It's the never-ending battle with inflation. Attended the first executive committee meeting of Virginia counties on January 7th. I was voluntold that I'm going to be the chair of the next, our next annual meeting in the fall, but we've got good staff in Richmond that'll help put that together. So hopefully I just say, yes, that looks good, yes, that looks good, let's do it. And it'll be more of a committee assignment. We did provide an I-81 committee update to staff and board at the Virginia Department of Transportation Ops Center, and also saw their Ops Center. They can see everything that goes on up and down the 81 corridor and then some. And it's amazing how that helps response times and improvements. And it's really a great tool to have in our area, especially on 81. And lastly, this morning, I attended and cut the ribbon to the new Bonsack Fire and Rescue Station number 12. An improvement of 18% in response times will be realized. And this is huge. It's already having an impact doing the soft opening last week. Former Supervisor Peters was telling me how it helped because he's connected to the volunteer group in Vinton, how it helped with response times and took some of the heat off of the Vinton Fire District as well. So I want to thank the regional support we've gotten from the city, from our Board of Supervisors here with unanimous support for that project. And we saved over $1 million alone in land acquisition because we weren't going to buy 27 acres when we only needed 2. And relationship building with Parkway Church and with conversations is how this started, not to mention the fact that the data on response time showed us the need for this facility. And I'm just glad it was a sunny day because it was a sunny moment for us to put a fire station on the foothills of the highest church in the region where you can go see fireworks better than any place else. And so if you haven't done that, I encourage you to do that sometime. They're very receptive, Dr. Ott and his staff, at putting that on every year. So that really took us about 3 years, didn't it, Richard? Nothing happens overnight in government, but when it does, we do it well. And that is the state-of-the-art fire station for Roanoke County, and I'm sure there'll be more popping up in future years because they meet a lot of needs that weren't in some of our fire stations today because the requirements change, facilities change, and the bay even changes. And not only was it inside out of the cold this morning, but the floor was warm. And if you don't believe me, ask Tammy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. North. Ms. Hooker.
So just a couple of items. The first one is I want to thank this board for signing off and passing the resolution for our code of conduct and ethics. And I think it was really an important step forward for this board. It's a good cornerstone of good governance, and I'm looking forward to having that. This is an outstanding board. We're a great team, but it's really a good statement for the future and what we hope boards beyond us will take on. Provides a clear framework for ethical decision-making, protects the organization from legal and financial risks, helps protect our staff, and in general, it just enhances our reputation. So I appreciate all the work that this board, especially Mr. Mahoney, in helping us to take codes of conduct from other organizations and counties and piecemeal together ours, and I was real pleased with the end result. Look forward to going to VACO next week, where we will visit with all of our General Assembly representatives, and we'll start lobbying seriously for the needs of this county and concerns of this county. So we will be working hard for our citizens and for all the things that concern this county. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Hooker. And I want to end with a couple of items. I want to recognize a hero in our community today. We have lots of heroes, okay? I'm just going to point this one out. His name is Jimmy Howe. His name was in the paper back in December and also recognized by Korean Clinic. And the story goes like this. In 2007, my twin son and daughter went from private schools to a public school. They attended their first year at Hidden Valley Middle School. The principal at the time was Dr. Ken Nicely. And the first day of school for my young son he didn't know anybody. But the first person that came up and introduced himself and got him acclimated was a student named Jimmy Howe. And Jimmy Howe developed a disease or illness that declared him brain dead in September 30th of last year. He's a Hidden Valley High School graduate, so my son got to go to high school with him. The reason why he's a hero is that he was an organ donor. He donated his last day of life. He donated his heart, liver, and his 2 kidneys, and those went out and saved 4 other people from our community. And you know, if I knew him or had a chance, I'd hug him, because in my mind, he's a hero, and he gave life to somebody else. And I thought it was a good story because my son was new to the area and to that school, and he friended him that day. So anyway, I also kind of finish up. I wanted to. I was with a group a couple weeks ago, kind of talking about what we've done as a board and what we're going to do in the future. So I've made a few notes here and kind of what we have done as a board the last 4 years is that we've been fighting inflation. We heard that through a couple of reports today. And so the way we've been fighting inflation and the assessments is we've been lowering the real estate tax. We've done it to around 5 cents. We've also lowered the personal property tax rate to help, you know, the citizens with those fees. And the used car values were going up, and now they're starting to come back down. We also, as a board, we worked on keeping pay competitive for our county employees, and that was spearheaded by our administration. We also, as a board, we made 2 key hires. We hired our present county administrator and our county attorney, and they're still here with us today. We also have had great economic success, and that continues on. We supported our fire and rescue. We supported our police department, our sheriff department, and it's good to see in the audience we have our vice chair, Brett Hudson, in the audience with you. Thank you for coming today. We've also supported our schools with major capital funding. So where do we go from here? Well, all 5 of us want to keep the county vibrant, successful for families and businesses. We need to create, as we've heard, more single-family homes at the right place, at the right time, and at the right price. We want to continue to create and improve our outdoor recreation opportunities. That is a big draw for young folks, young families. We want to maintain all our county services. We talked about that earlier in some of our presentations. There's a need to expand our sewer and water infrastructure. And we talked about the runway expansion at the airport. And we want to continue to improve our transportation safety in our highways and roads. So I'm looking forward to a fantastic 2025 with my fellow board members. I think we're off to a good start. And I am going to move to item K, work sessions.
Could I just interject one thing?
Yes, sir.
And all the news has been going on because we haven't had a meeting in a month. And the last week felt like it was a month with much going on, not to mention the weather. I just want to say congratulations on your elevation to chair. And don't let your hair get on fire because you've got a board that you can rely on. And all you got to do is dial 1-800-board members. So
Okay.
looking forward to your leadership. Thank you.
That's good enough. Item 1 in the work session to review with the Board of Supervisors the 10-year fleet and heavy equipment replacement for fiscal years 2026 through 2035. Ashley King, Director of General Services, Laurie Gearhart, Director of Finance and Management Services, and Richard Kaywood, County Administrator, will head that presentation. Then work session number 2 will be to review with the Board of Supervisors a preliminary revenue outlook for fiscal year 2025-2026. Projected general government fund operating revenues and budget issues to be Mr. Kaywood, Richard Kaywood, County Administrator, will head that one up. Momentarily, the board will recess to the third floor for the work sessions. However, before doing so, I'd like to move that the board go into a closed session upon the completion of the work sessions. So that moves us to item L, closed meeting, pursuant to the Code of Virginia as follows. I move to go into closed session pursuant to Code Section 2.2-3711A5 of the Code of Virginia for discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the businesses or industries interested in locating or expanding its facilities in the community. Specifically, the board will discuss potential business location or expansion in the community. The board will also discuss potential business location of expansion in the Catawba, Cave Spring, and Vinton magisterial districts. And according to Section 2.237A1 of the Code of Virginia, to discuss the appointments of members of the Board of Supervisors to boards, commissions, and authorities. Do I have a second?
Second.
Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Hooker?
Yes.
Mr. North?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Radford?
Yes. The board will now recess to the third floor for the work session and closed session. Thank you.